All right, well, welcome everyone to our Monday, April the 28th, 2025 Business Board Meeting. I call the meeting to order, and I welcome our Treasurer, Randy Bertram, to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Ramsey Hunter.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Mrs. Stewart.
Here.
Mrs. Schreiber.
Here.
Dr. Urso.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So move.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Anita. Any questions, comments prior to approval? All right, then, Mr. Bertram, when you're ready.
Mrs. Ramsey Hunter.
Yay.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart.
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber.
Yes.
And Dr. Urso.
Yes. All right, whenever you're ready, Mr. Bertram. It looks like you have a financial issue at the state and local levels.
Yes, we do.
Presentation for us.
Take off my glasses to see. I put them on to see the top lines.
All the way over the left. All the way.
Just start the
Animation.
slideshow.
Nope, all the way over the left.
Right there.
Click, click.
Yep.
Thank you. Isn't that bad? There's a glare on it from that window.
Sure.
Takes a village, Randy.
It does, thank you. Sometimes it takes a village idiot. All right, agenda tonight, we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about the Federal Department of Education, the callback policy change that took effect on March 28th. We're going to talk about Ohio House Bill 96, which is the biennium budget bill approved by the House. And then we're going to look at the creation of a capital improvement fund 070. All right, clawback. This is an action that was taken by Secretary McMahon for the Education Department in Washington. And at state force is $5.621 million. That money is temporarily on hold, and it was effective immediately by the time we got word of it. And we're going to look for remedies, how we continue the project, and what we're doing to try to unclaw that money or claw it back into our coffers. All right, Secretary McMahon, she issued a modified federal liquidation rule under 2 CFR paragraph 200.344C. And a lot of numbers. And it was effective immediately of all federal award recipients must liquidate obligations with 120 days of the awards ending. That had already passed. So this is their key to say, hey, we have the right to do this. We can do it immediately. March 28th was the date it was signed and immediately put into effect. And although the COVID pandemic period has ended, the department may approve extensions. That's the good word in the memo. It's a one-page memo that they sent out saying that there is a way we can claw that money back into the district. And in those requests, we must demonstrate how our project extension is still necessary to mitigate the effects of COVID on American students, education, and why the department should exercise its discretion to grant our request. And it's the same reasons that we had to give to get the money in the first place. I don't know that anything has changed much. It's the exact same verbiage that we used to get this approved November 20th, where the original request went out August 7th for that approval. Went through several iterations and approval kept getting thrown back by the state when they say they want more and more, and finally they got everything they needed to approve that program. February 18, 2025, late liquidation application for ESSER funding was submitted. And the late liquidation was a rule that came out and said, okay, there are districts, we know they're still doing projects, capital improvements, and for some reason, school districts had 2 years less to spend the money than villages, townships, and cities. School districts were unique, not sure why, because we were allowed to do construction as well. So they put an application out saying, okay, you could be approved for late liquidation. We did that on the 18th, and it was approved on the 26th by Ohio and the feds to take care of that. March 28th, that's when we got the order. It took a month and 2 days to say, okay, we approved it 32 days ago, now we're taking it back for 30 days. It was February. April 1st to the 4th, we received 2 emails, one on the 1st and the 4th, from the Ohio Department of Education Workforce saying, stop spending your money. We know the feds have come down with an order. They didn't send us a copy of what that memo was. I received that at a later date, which will come up here. So at that time, it kind of put us in panic mode. We didn't know what was going on. Just put it on hold, put your projects on hold, and as we spoke at the last meeting, when you have construction as big of a project as we have, you just can't put it on hold. It's problematic. We'll discuss that a little more too. On April 7th, letters and project photos sent to the Ohio and U.S. legislators. We were requesting interventions. We jumped right in, got a letter out to them. That included both U.S. senators, our representative of our area, Warren Davidson, Representative Thomas Hall, and Senator George Lang from Ohio. April 9th, I had my first discussion with Davidson's office for the project support. They wanted to know more about it. They got back to me right away when we had sent the letters out, so I was happy with that. We set up a phone call meeting. And then on that same date, we received the letter from our attorney's office, who had a copy of the letter, stating that all those projects were put on hold, but there was a remedy to continue those funds if you could pass those 2 requirements. I was a little disappointed in Ohio Department of Education because they didn't include that letter when they sent out their emails on the 1st and the 4th. They're just kind of in the dark. I made it known. And sometimes when they see me coming, they won't act like they don't see me coming. That was one of those days. April 16th, email from ODU. Confirmed survey process is open. They gave us a 1-week window to submit any new documentation to get the claw back. We'll call that the CBCB. Senator Lang, talked to him on the phone. He immediately said, I'm going to call my folks in Columbus and we're going to get a letter of support for you. And it was a no-brainer for him that this project should not be stopped. Between April 21st and 23rd, we got together with our small team. Our superintendent, business manager, Beth, and myself got together to organize what we were going to send out, what we were going to submit in that survey. And on the 23rd, we submitted that survey, which was that final day. On the 24th, I received an email from Chief of Staff Aaron Roush. He is the guru at the Ohio Department of Education that oversees the finances for the Department of Education in Ohio. He is the top dog to approve the applications in Ohio. So this was actually good news when I received this from him on the next day. He's also the gentleman I steamrolled at our conference in Columbus in front of 300 people, asking them why they didn't do what they did. But anyhow, he acknowledged receipt, and he asked if we wanted them to hold the application, not send it to Washington yet. I thought, you gave us a week to submit it, and sent him another email, which isn't in the power slide, and I said, well, what's your timeline to submit? He knew that I had asked J.D. Vance, Vice President Vance, for support as well, but we're having a problem getting that because he's overseas. So he said, hey, I can hold it, give you an opportunity to receive that documentation and submit everything together. And his response to me is, we don't have a timeline to submit it to the feds. We just wanted to get it done as quickly as possible. Why they only gave us a week, I thought that was a pretty short window when they didn't have a timeline on their end. These are the 3 letters of support that we have currently from Representative Thomas Hall and Senator Lang and Representative Warren Davidson. We're very, very happy we're able to do that, especially having one from Warren Davidson's office. Originally, when I spoke to him, he said, get it approved by the state first, then we'll talk. But I was able to get it approved by the state and send it on. And they also sent me notice that they also sent their letter directly to Linda McMahon, Secretary of Department of Education in Washington. They also received these beautiful pictures showing them that it's hard to stop a project when you've already got all the steel out, poured the concrete, you've got the plumbing going in. So, Deb, what's your quote you give me? That was
A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, so that was powerful. And that's, we got Warren Davidson's office to call me right away when they saw those pictures. So it was ridiculous. All right, what's the next step with transportation maintenance project? All right. You still reserve the right to put the project on hold. I understand we have to go through some other processes, but I think after Eric spoke last week, he talked about the importance of at least getting that in an envelope, getting the sides, getting the roof on there to protect the integrity of the current building. Other issues with that is deterioration of the unfinished structure, escalating costs over time, inflation and labor shortages. Eric did mention if we did put a hold on it and Conger left the site, we don't know when we'd get them back because of other projects they may be working on. Security and liability risks, permitting and legal implications, operational displacement, unstable workarounds, and financial waste and irrevocable investment. That's the big one that Senator Lang said, it makes no sense that you'd spend nearly $5 million on this and then we just put a stop on it. It's illogical. Current situation, the fallback of ESSER federal funds has created significant financial challenges. Stopping construction now would create even greater risk than the funding shortfall itself. One of the main reasons for that is we tore down all but the one building that we have left out there to put this facility over top of the prior buildings. And local funds remain committed and available, and there are no existing facilities to return to. Continuing construction protects the investment, protects the district's existing investments, restores operational efficiencies across the transportation and maintenance, avoids costly deterioration and escalating repair costs, and meets long-term infrastructure needs critical to the district's operations and growth. Transportation's been very generous to move a few hundred feet down the street, work out of the old drive-in parking lot, and how long will they be that gracious if we put it on hold and we've got to wait. Are there any questions as far as our progress on trying to get the claw back?
Just curious, did Thomas Hall's office, have we reached out to Thomas Hall, Mike DeWine?
Not DeWine's office, hadn't gone that far yet. But
Any of our senates?
Thomas Hall was, once I reached him, he was very cooperative to give me his letter the next day.
And so he also
Yes,
scribed a
one
letter?
of the 3 letters that we received.
And
Senator Lang, Thomas Hall, Warren Davidson.
Okay. And then what about Senators Moreno or Houston?
Still haven't heard anything back from them. In fact, I've even reached out to J.D. Vance's office to try to get direct contacts. I haven't heard back from J.D.'s office with any direct contacts. The only thing I'm able to do is the same thing anyone else is able to do, is go out to their website and they say contact us and fill out the form they have out there, which I've done twice.
I did get a response from Bernie Marino's office to contact these people.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Oh, fantastic. Sure.
I will. But there's no word, Washington, there's not a peep about when a decision will be made, right? Nothing yet?
No.
Okay.
All right, House Bill 96 is voted on by the House. The big issue in this, there's several issues in there, but the biggest one of concern is background and explanation of cash carryover and what a 30% cap is to the cash reserve. They want to say at no point during your current fiscal year, at the end of that fiscal year, then you have more than 30% carryover. If you have more than 30% carryover, there's consequences. Now, our current policy that we just redid and approved has us at 75 as the bottom, which is a 20% carryover. Then we also put a cap at 75 days, 20%. At 150 days, we doubled that to 40% carryover, which gives us a pretty good window to operate. I don't think we've ever been over 40%, but I will share that the average carryover in Ohio for school districts is 45%, as it stands today. At 30%, I do think, you know, I always said 30 is the sweet spot, 20 I think should be the bare minimum, and 40 does give you some fluctuation in there. But they want to cap it at 30%. And they actually, they had an amendment to change it from 25 to 30 before they approved this, and they felt really good that they upped it by the 5%. We'll talk about consequences. First of all, for those that are watching on social media, what is a cash balance? Cash balance is the amount of money we have at the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30th, the amount of cash in our general fund. And I'd like to point out with that, it is the money that we use to pay daily expenses like transportation, salaries, utilities, instructional materials, and student services. It is our operating money. It's money we need. It's money in our checkbook to use every day to pay the bills. It is not an emergency fund. It is our operating cash. And I think some of the folks in Columbus want to treat it like it's a rainy day fund, like they do their own. And it passed, at least in my time, at least three extensions to the amount that they could carry over each year. So I think it's a little bit hypocritical that they're telling us that they're going to put a cap on us. And where's the money come from? The majority of the money comes from the Department of Education, the state of Ohio, and then the second amount of money comes from our local property taxes. That's growing. At some point, that's going to flip. We're going to get more locally than from the state, the way we're getting richer in the eyes of the formula, if we continue the formula. It's quasi-broken under this new House formula. And then we get some federal, state, and local grants, and then a few revenues from athletics, parking, field trips, and so forth, which is phenomenal. And 80% of the money is used on salaries and benefits, so the majority of it does go to pay our staff. Why carryover matters in our district? Currently, we're holding about a 30% carryover, about 138 days worth. That's what I'm projecting at the end of this fiscal year, June 30th. It's the most that we've had in my 11 years here, and looking back 6 years prior to that, it's the most we've had in 17 years as far as I can see. I imagine in the heyday with AK Steel and everything was pretty, when we were all American City, money was flying in here, they might have done better in those days, but it probably has been several decades since we've had that much. But again, at 38%, us being at a high for a couple decades, we're still below the state average of 45%. Of course, we use it to pay bills while we're waiting on our tax payments. Our tax payments only come twice a year. That's when you pay your taxes, twice a year. You pay it, they send it. So with the ebbs and flows of paying bills, we pay bills every week of every year. When you're waiting on large portions of your revenue coming twice a year, you're going to dip well below that 38% when you're waiting on that revenue to come in and pad your pocket once again to start paying bills. I looked at it, and I think we went as low as 11% during these periods, the last couple of years of cash balance remaining. Certainly enough to survive, but there are other districts that will go in the hole and have to actually borrow money to make payroll if this happens. Covering grant-related costs. Last year we had $15 million in grants. We pay those, we receive the money in the arrears. We pay them out of our general fund, basically, and then we ask for reimbursements, and then we get the reimbursements once a month from the state. So depending how big those payments are, can really deplete the cash flow as well. So that's could be problematic at times. And the big one, managing cash flow to avoid borrowing when expenses spike unexpectedly. Sometimes things happen. You could have a tornado come through here, blow several roofs off buildings, really be cash strapped to get things done. They take insurance, allow them to catch up to it. And then, of course, respond to emergencies, same thing, such as infrastructure repairs or unexpected costs. Another thing that happens to us, it seems like it happens every 2 years, the state decides to change how they're funding us. That's sometimes problematic. They're reducing costs that we hadn't planned on. We'd like to have a cash reserve to help us through those times and be able then to be proactive in generating more cash reserve over that biennium. And then financial planning helps keep Middletown schools stable and prevents levy requests. As most people know, we have not had an operating levy in years. And I still see us staying that way, but if we have to go to a 30% cap, there may be a need to do that, because what the cap could do to us this year is we could lose 6.5, 7, maybe $8 million, depending on our cash balance ends at the end of the year. We're at 38%. That's 8% that we are giving back to property owners. Middletown could lose access to critical funding or be forced to consider placing levies on the ballot sooner than expected. And that talks about our cash reserve policy with 75 and 150 days. Removing this financial flexibility would severely limit our ability to plan for the future, manage cash flow responsibility, and serve students effectively. And again, it could force us into short-term borrowing. I will tell you, counties, they don't pay us the same week twice a year. Sometimes we'll receive it maybe mid-March. This year we didn't receive it till April, 3 weeks later than we did last year. And this county usually gives us one advance. 2 weeks later, they give us a settlement. Since they were so late on the advance, they just gave us the settlement. So, you know, had we had a lower cash balance to start with, it could have created a situation where we would have had to borrow money to make it. All right, just a little conclusion. Obviously, it's vital to maintain strong, stable schools. And I've asked people if they can reach out to Senator George Lang. The budget goes from the House to the Senate. The Senate is back in session this week, and they're working on the budget the next 2 or 3 weeks. Reach out to our local senator and let him know that you oppose this 30% cap that is a problem for your local school district. And as I mentioned, when I talked to Senator Lang, he was in full agreement, didn't understand what the House was doing, why they were doing this. It made no sense. He said, you don't operate a business like this. You can't operate a business like this. So there's the information there. I will also add that when we came back for our conference a few weeks ago, the powers, our legal experts up in Columbus seem to think 90% chance this was going to happen. They felt no matter what, Matt Huffman, this is his #1 issue. He's going to get this passed. This is his baby. It's going to save Ohio property owners $5.2 billion with a B on the backs of school districts. In other words, when they took a look at the 45% for all districts, reduced it down to 30, there's $5.2 billion there. That would be a give back to your local taxpayers. Now, and that's really tricky. I don't want to get into the details of how that's going to happen, but it's good. If it does happen, one of the House bills talks about putting it into a rebate. It'll be a rebate form that households will get a rebate each of the next 3 years. And what they would do is they would lower our millage for the next tax collection by the amount of millage that if we're over by 8 million, they figure out how many mills equates to 8 million for us, and they would reduce our millage by that much the following year. So, yeah, it's not that we write them a big check for 8 million; they just take it out of the collections of the taxpayers. If it would stay in that legislation.
So-
Any questions?
Yep, so we have our operating carryover fund. Do we also have, you had mentioned a rainy day fund, contingency, emergency, whatever we're calling it?
We do not.
So we
State
do,
does.
but
Yeah,
we
our-
do not carry a contingency fund at all.
We have other funds set up, and we're going to talk about that a little bit now. We're going to want to set up an 070 fund, which are, they're not rainy day funds, they're funds for a specific reason. And here on the 070, we'd be creating a special revenue fund for capital projects. We have our PI fund.
Right.
That's for capital, that's for maintenance, and this.
So this
sort
would
of
be
the
in
same
addition
thing,
to.
but not exactly the same thing. But 070 fund, for districts that don't have a PI fund, they create an 070 fund. That 070 fund, this district never did, that I'm aware of. That's why when I came here, I said we need a PI fund, and we developed that PI fund. But the 070 fund is specific for capital projects that you know are coming up that you want to allocate and earmark dollars for. What you're doing is, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but accumulate money for those exact expenditures. And the way you do it, there's a couple ways you can do it, but the way I'm recommending for us is we're going to transfer money out of the general fund, this 070 fund. Big part of it is we're doing it, first of all, because of the uncertainty regarding the use of our ESSER 507 funds. Right now, our transportation, the majority of it is in that 507 fund, that $5.6 million still remaining on expenditures. We transfer that amount right there. And then we could also go ahead and use Barnett Stadium for $750,000. There's a fuel plaza, which is part of the transportation. That is not part of the construction project that Mr. Satsi is working on. We have a contract for $125,000 for that fueling station. That's a capital improvement. I just got word today we have to buy new fuel tanks up there because they won't approve our existing fuel tanks because they're too old, outdated. So it's going to be probably another $80,000 to $100,000. And then student Corona books for $250,000. Right now, those are items that I'd recommend, let's set them up. Not that we have to spend them out of there, but we have the ability to spend them out of there. And by transferring these monies from the general fund into this new account, we could transfer from the PI to it as well, with just an empty general fund. We'll continue these critical projects without misrepresenting expenditures in the original fund sources. So right now, if I kept that $5.6 million in the general fund and we started paying for the transportation, and say we had to continue paying for it, you'd see a big spike in 2025 and 2026 because it transferred the next fiscal year as well. In our capital outlay, it wouldn't be consistent like you've seen in the traditional forecast now. So it allows you then to just pull that money, don't show those spikes, and use it in a capital fund where the reason it was created and intended.
Randy, can we move back to the carryover? I mean, you don't have to advance the slides, but so I still have a question about the carryover. Are Ohio public schools allowed to have a contingency fund? The reason we don't have one is that because we're not allowed to have an emergency?
There is no fund within our accounting system that says contingency.
Or emergency or rainy day or
But there
whatever?
are, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
you
so.
could set money aside in your general fund if you wanted to. You could do a cash reserve out of the general fund on your 5-year forecast that could act like a rainy day fund. We don't do it here. So you've always got that option.
Would that
There is
cash
not a separate fund for rainy day.
Would that cash reserve be recognized as ultimately as an operating carryover if you did that?
It'd be part of the 30%.
Okay. And where you had mentioned the carryover is expected to be reduced to 31%, is that based on what might happen over the years, or is that
It's just
based on
current
the?
forecasting without what they're thinking for this biennium budget.
Okay, so we may end up there anyway, but
Yes.
it'll be a couple of years out.
It'd be a couple years, but we'd get there next
But we
year
would-
because they would take it if we don't have a way to spend it or reserve it into other.
Right, they take it if we're over, but ultimately, we may end up at that 31 based on the forecast anyway?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Things go away, that 30% goes away, we go back to spending as we currently have allocated and set up. We're going to see us down around that 30% in a couple of years.
Anyway.
Randy, is there any
I'd say
clarity?
about 4 years.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any clarity as to when our bus garage will be dried in to the point to where we won't risk ruining any of the new construction? I know that it's a lot of
Yeah.
factors, weather, timeliness of materials, so
Well,
forth.
they're out there doing the sides now. The sides go up, then they go out, put the roof on. So I
Uh-huh.
imagine within a month's time, that everything should be pretty done.
Okay, because that question kind of goes to the timing of when do we need to decide to move ahead or not. I recall those conversations. I was trepid and to move with the bus garage project. It would be hard for me to utilize taxpayer dollars for the I would like to kind of have hopefully some clarity over the next month or so from our state and federal government.
A lot of moving parts.
There are, and you said that there's no timeline to submit our application, which also gives the impression there would be no timeline for them to give a decision on said application either.
I will tell you, Mr. Roush did tell me that they've submitted those questions to the Department of Education. They haven't received a response yet. He said he would let us know when he receives that response to give us more guidance on how the feds are going to handle the surveys that were submitted and timelines that they plan on using.
And I guess in full transparency, for us not to complete that, that's not, I mean, I think as a board, we've been strong fiscal stewards, and it's uncontrollables, people coming and saying things that we had no ability to forecast that. It came in an email that this is going to happen. Part of me is, let's see what they do. We have a building, it's not done, we have to transport kids. Our government's meant to serve our communities, protect our young people, protect our communities. It should be their honest, their priority to serve in that capacity and not to inhibit us to transport our young people to school. And so as I sit here, I'm trying to work through this in a way that, I don't know, is sensible, given that it's not sensible what's going on. And so it's...
You're trying to make sense out of something that makes no sense.
Correct. And to understand that, I mean, yeah, that we have folks in our community that are in extremely powerful positions. I would imagine they would want to weigh in on these kinds of concerns too. So.
And going back to the 90% that our legal experts thought that this would pass, it's probably down to 50-50 now, because I don't think the House did all their homework, and as much as they don't like school districts having a 45% carryover, cities, townships, and villages have a higher percentage than we do. It'll do more harm to them than it will to school districts. I don't know that they all care about that or not, but they are getting a lot of pushback. Columbus is under a lot of heat right now because of this 30% for all government entities. So I'm going to stay optimistic, hope that people do reach out to their senators throughout the state, and there's enough heat on the senators that they don't dare put it in theirs. But then there's still the reconciliation part. When we have two budgets and they're not matching, they'll have to come together in reconciliation. We should know within, I would say, 3 weeks, have a good idea what the Senate's going to propose. I would think they'd be done with their budget. They've been working on it, and the hearings will begin, and we'll start seeing drafts of what they're proposing. So 3 weeks, 4 weeks into May, I would think the Senate would be ready to vote on it, and then it would go to Congress.
But that's a separate issue as compared to our bus garage and the federal government clawing back.
Yes and no. I mean, these are kind of tying together how...
I can see how you can fit those together, but...
Yeah, but that is a separate issue.
Correct.
Reaching out to our U.S. senators now and Warren Davidson. We already know he's on board. But yeah, reaching out to them to put pressure on them to get this approved is vital as well. I'll share some information on those contacts once I have better contacts. I think when we go out and do the contacts online, you automatically get an email that comes back to you. Thank you very much, and then you get a spiel that sounds like a campaign speech. They just don't have a button to donate money on that one. And I think it goes into the abyss in many cases. So we're trying to get those direct contacts to have more of a positive effect on getting a full of a human being and not an AI bot out there. Did that answer? Take care of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Going back again, I've given you some ideas of how I'd like to move money over to the 070, just to have the money there, have it ready if need be. Definitely, we want to use it right away to pay the bills. We do know we have an application that's due in any day now from Conger. I do want a way to pay for that. So I have asked you to look at that and approve it tonight if you're able to. We table it with one more meeting at the most, but we'll be okay with that. And again, creating the 070 fund ensures that Middletown City Schools can responsibly and legally continue progress on critical capital projects while maintaining flexibility in the face of uncertain federal reimbursement policies.
I want to say thank you. It's a lot of good information. Hopefully people listen and understand what's going on and how it has a bearing on their local community, especially in Middletown, if Middletown folks are watching. But I appreciate the clarity. You did a good job explaining it in layman terms. And so it's very good information.
You know, I asked each board member, reach out to Senator Lang at the very least and say, hey, got the presentation from Randy, and you're definitely against that 30%.
Thank you.
It's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
I'm ready for some good news, though.
Yes.
Anytime we get some good news. That brings us to our consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved?
Thank you, Anita. And a second, please.
Second.
Awesome. Any questions, comments, any highlights? There's a few contracts within tonight's consent agenda, financial reports, the typical items.
I just had a quick question. This is about the facilities dog.
Circle Town?
A couple things there. Just one, I know that we've had we haven't had discussion here recently, but there's been discussion about the SRO contracts. If we were to fund this tonight, this doesn't interfere with future contract with an SRO or anything like that, or subtract from any total budgeted for that amount or anything like that? No?
No.
Okay. And I've seen it's the budget source here is Stronger Connections. Is this something that's grant funded or?
That's a grant,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. The other, this is kind of a broader question, but I noticed in the contracts itself, Schoology and some other contracts, I know we talked about doing a technology audit at one point, kind of looking into that. I was just wondering if any progress been made there. I know that these two programs are pretty essential to the high school and other things, but just broadly, at some point, will we hear back just any of those initial findings or anything on the technology audit?
That goal is the one goal that is still in progress for me, and it was due just because of the redistricting.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I just anticipating potential cuts or just even having budget discussions, maybe,
Wow.
yeah, maybe think about that a little more. So,
Good question.
yeah.
Other questions regarding consent agenda?
A couple comments, just a high-level overview. So you see a couple contracts in the consent agenda this evening for student placement. One of those contracts is for a student for the remainder of this year, and then one contract is for the full year next year. So student contracts. Mr. Moore brought up the Circle Tail contract. That's for Glory at the middle school. Same process, same expectations, same contract that we have in place for our other dogs in the district. Math consultants, you see the contract for Hamilton County on the board agenda this evening. Same math consultants that we've had for the past 3 years. It's just a continuation of their work. Moving into the 25-26 school year. Then we have, you also mentioned Schoology and Apex. Schoology is our learning management system for our 7th through 12th graders. That's where they go for teacher communication, their assignments, submit homework. It's a tool for them to communicate back and forth with learning. And then Apex is our online learning system. So we have online virtual learning, online learning with Mid-State, credit recovery at the high school, and then also our MIDI Virtual Academy for students that in lieu of expulsion. So once again, Schoology has been in the district, and so has Apex. So these are your contracts continuing forward. I think that's it.
Just one statement. Typically, we have a personnel agenda B with my brother or somebody with my last name in that agenda. Tonight's agenda does not have that. I believe he is on our agenda tonight, so hence my vote this evening. It probably reflect that. Mr. Bertram.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Abstain.
And Mrs. Ramsey?
Yes.
All right, bringing us to business and transportation, there's a contract with Plains Moving and Storage of Dayton. Is there a motion for approval?
So move for approval.
In a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Tara. Mr. Bertram, Ms. Hauser, want to give us a high level?
Sure. So this is, we're getting ready to move, right, with redistricting. So quite a bit of moving. So we have Highview teachers first that are going to be moving out of Highview, once school's over, into their new homes. Then we have Central teachers, Central really the entire program moving over to Highview. Also, we have moving our teachers in the elementaries because we have to shift some of those classrooms because 6th grade's staying in the building. So just lots of moving, and planes, as you know, that's the boxes and the tape, and that's the contract that you see in front of you this evening.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Questions regarding that contract? No. If there are none, then Mr. Bertram.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramsey Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
All right, motion is approved. Under finance, it is to create, there is an actionable item to create a capital project fund, a 070, which Mr. Bertram presented to the board. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
And a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion needed, questions that are percolating? Is that enough silence?
Yep.
We ready? All right.
3 seconds.
All right, then Mr. Bertram.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramsey Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
And so, just for a point of clarification, you had mentioned towards the end of your presentation that there is an outstanding bill to Conger. Is that correct?
There's an application due in, yes.
Okay, and so this will be the first action within that fund to satisfy that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right, if I'm reading this correct, it brings us to committee reports. Are there any committees, Ms. Hauser?
Nope, I think we're
None?
good. Nope,
All right.
let this go around.
Okey-doke. And that brings us to Board of Education reports. Ms. Ramsey Hunter, anything to report tonight?
No.
All right. Moving down the line, Mr. Moore?
No comments this evening.
All right.
Thank you, Randy, for your financial report. I looked at it in advance and could completely understand it. So thank you for making it so clear, comprehensive, and easy to read and understand. Anita and Tara and I will be participating in Butler Tech's all boards meeting and
Good.
student presentations on Thursday, May 1st, I believe.
May something.
Yeah, pretty sure it's May 1st, Thursday. So Todd and Chris, if you guys want to
I
hang
was
out with
planning
us,
on
you're
trying to come.
always welcome to sit at our table. They have an exercise, a competition between the districts if we want to have some fun.
And the food's good.
And the
It
food
is, I
is
remember.
always very good. Yeah, I think that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schreiber, anything to report tonight?
I just would like to encourage anybody who may be listening to write to Senator Lang. This is an important topic, and the quicker we get this resolved, the better. I think more voices are louder. So
That's right.
it's not a difficult thing to write these letters. Just get on the,
And it just could be a phone call as well, phone
Right.
number, supply, just let them know.
right.
They
Right.
check all those as they get them as well, so
Mhm.
they don't matter.
Oh, and you can refer to the newsletter as well,
Newsletter,
right?
that's
You
right.
had a recap in
Yes.
the
It
newsletter.
just went
and a
out
way
today.
to
Yes.
contact the senators. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, my turn. Just want to raise up Layla Johnson, who's a senior softball player. I see her image on social media. She's hitting home runs. I think she's approaching if she probably already has it, the high school record for our softball team. Really wonderful young woman at our high school. Has a bright future. It's nice to see her do well in the spring. My brother just sent me all kinds of things the middle school track team has done. It'll take me 5 minutes to read all this. And my brother's probably going to be mad at me because I'm not going to read all of it, but I know the 800 relay finished first place, and the 4x400 finished in first place, and had a lot of great achievements from our middle school track team. I think our high school track team is doing really well too in the spring, and so excited for them. Also got an email, and I don't want to get ahead of my skis here, but the high school and middle school project, the building renovation from years ago. I think we're finally closing that project down with the state.
Hallelujah.
You took my thunder.
Did I? It's always good to go before you guys, and so I can say that, because I signed, I think, a document earlier today that hopefully gets to the end of a road. I mean, we've been in that building for a few years now, to know that it takes a little bit of time. That gives me the worry about how long do decisions take when that's a decision that's taken years to get to that point. But that's all I have. Mr. Bertram, Ms. Hauser, anything to report?
Excuse me, can I just add, I just thought of something. I want to congratulate Lyric Smith, who's recipient of the Louis Cox Scholarship Award this year. Very often, that award doesn't even go to a Middletown student, because it's for, I believe, Butler County in general. So congratulations to Lyric Smith.
Yay.
Thanks.
I'd just like to add that Mr. Stotzing has reached out to Conger to see when that connection project, how soon we can get it going.
I was
Of course,
gonna ask.
at this point, it's been so long that we're going to have to, not rebid it, but we're going to have to get estimates on it again, what it's going to cost, and I'll go through it. But at least we know now we can move forward and plan accordingly with Conger. So that is great news. I'm glad you signed that. That helped.
Yeah, it's one of those electronic signatures. It looks like I was in first grade, but I think it works. Yeah.
It worked. I got the final copy this morning.
Good.
So thank you. That's all I have.
That's all? Okay, next week on May 6th, we have Election Day in, in our elementary buildings, K through 6. So our K through 6 students will be doing remote learning next week on Tuesday, May 6th. Information about assignments will be going home by the end of this week. But just a note, our 7th through 12th graders still on regular schedule. We do not have election activities in our 7th through 12th grade building. Also, next week is Staff Appreciation Week. So it's the week that nationally that we pause and set aside the time to recognize all of our staff members for everything that they do to make the magic happen for our students. So I encourage everyone to send a nice note, just something special to recognize the special educators in their children's lives or each other's lives next week, and let them know that they are appreciated. That's all I have.
All right, if there's nothing else, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
In a second, please?
Second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moore.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Have a good night.
Thank you.